Hey, happy Sunday, everybody. It is that time of the day, Sunday at 6 p.m., when I go live. And I got such an interesting topic today. Um, so I wanted to make the month of August all about motivation. Like, how do we get motivated? How do we stay motivated? And half the time I'm going to tell you the stuff I talk about here and in my blog is for me. So if it motivates you along the way as well, that is fantastic. But the month of August, I want to talk about some different ways we can motivate ourselves. And especially because for me, I have been feeling really unmotivated. I've been showing up and doing it, but feeling unmotivated into creating, continuing to create the life that I want to live. Hey, Tom, how's it going, buddy? So I thought I would talk about today and the rest of the month just some ways that we can motivate ourselves, and some ways I've tried, some ways that I'm going to be trying through talking about the stuff. And tonight, I wanted to talk about a topic that oftentimes, especially here in the no worries, good to see you, Tom. Uh, Here in the Western world is that idea of death. We don't talk about that a lot, do we? But I swear some of the people that are the most motivated in their lives are people who have had near death experiences. And they end up having what's called mortality motivation, meaning they know without a shadow of a doubt that their life is going to end at some point. They've experienced it, and that experience leads them into greater and larger motivation. I think there is a culture in our world, especially in the Western world, that because we don't talk about death, uh, we also don't talk about what we're living into before death. And I know this can be a difficult topic for some. Several years ago, I did a few sessions with my friend Rowena, who I went through life coaching school with. And at the time, she was an emergency room nurse who was also interested in becoming a death doula because she'd been at the bedside of many people who were taking their last breaths without anyone else around them. And she saw how often they fought the death and how they just really weren't ready for it. She was interested in helping people well before the end of life came to better prepare for it. And one of the things that she asked me, which was of great interest at the time, was she asked me to imagine myself actually on my deathbed and to invite in the people that I would love to have a last conversation with, and to actually have me experience that as if I were really dying and have the conversations of things that I would want to say to people. Who did I bring in and what did I say? I tell you, I was a real mess through that whole process. But it became really clear to me that I didn't want to have any I love yous not being said, which is really funny because I think I told my virtual assistant, it might have slipped out of my mouth twice. She's an employee, but it might have slipped out, "I love you" twice. She works in the Philippines, and I was like, "Oh." But in the moment, I just loved and appreciated her so much. And so if you were to really do this exercise, oh, I wanted to continue that. So doing that exercise made it really apparent to me that I don't want any I love yous to go unsaid, and that I have people in my life that I've hurt, that I wanted to be able to come clean with and be able to have a clear conscience with, and people that I felt had hurt me that I wanted to forgive and let go, and it was all going to be okay. She also had me do an exercise while I was on the deathbed to be thinking of, do I have any regrets? Is there something you haven't done if your death was going to happen tomorrow that you haven't done? And immediately it was, I have always wanted to find my birth mother. So I'm adopted and I had a fine growing up, love my mom to death. It wasn't always easy for sure. Um, and I always kind of thought that I didn't want to find my birth mother because it would hurt her, my mom who raised me, too much. But I realized I needed to do this. I wanted to do this, and I knew she could. I had to let go of the feelings of how it might hurt my mom and know that she could be on her own journey. And so I immediately hired a private investigator. I started to do it on my own and realized, oh, I was born in California. It's a closed adoption state. It felt like it was really hard for me. And plus, it was way back in the 60s. And so I hired a private investigator. And within a short time frame, she found the woman. And it was like, oh my gosh, it really took less than a few months to do this. This is something I had wanted to do my entire life. And then I had the information, and it took me a while to actually write a letter. And I have to say, I think it was maybe one of the best letters I ever written. And I sent it off. And I've never heard from her. And I realized that that wasn't part of it. My motivation was for me to be able to express my gratitude for her. After I had found information about my adoption and what she had gone through to move away from a place that she grew up, and I'm sure there was so much shame and stigma associated with this, to move to a completely different state and do this all on her own and end up having a C-section, and so to then have a scar her whole life. And I thought she must have been such a strong woman, such fortitude, and I know that she's got a great sense of humor and a hilarious laugh. Yeah. And I was so happy that I did that. But I have to say, that has been a few years ago, and I think I've gone back and settled back into a lifestyle of not remembering that my days are finite. So I'm going to actually do that exercise myself again, and to find out what's next, what needs to come up for me next, what will I regret not doing? And I know for sure one of the biggest regrets I will have is not being in a partnership, in a relationship with someone who I deeply love. So just putting that out there, universe, whoever that is, but one that feels very equal in that sense, or at least mostly equal with varying degrees of equalness throughout it. Uh, and I want to invite you to do this exercise as well, to find a time for yourself to, what would happen if you really went to a place of knowing that your days are numbered? Who knows how many any of us have? And who could you invite into the room now? What would you want to say? And why aren't you saying that to them now? And what would you want to experience? And how would you want to pass over to the other side? What do you need to have in place? Is everything in order for you to be able to go with ease? Because, my dear friend, I have to tell you, we're all going to go at some point. But because we don't talk about it, we don't allow that to be a motivation. And it's kind of like being in a never-ending tennis match. Imagine that you are playing a tennis match that doesn't have a set ending. Like, you can't just win your sets and know that when you win 3 sets, the match is over. You're just playing forever and ever and ever. It doesn't matter how many sets you win or lose, your game just never ends. Well, after a few little while, you're going to play with no energy at all. You're going to grow tired of it. You're going to grow listless. And that's kind of what we do when we don't realize that our lives here on earth are precious and few. Because pretending that you're not going to die really hampers your living. Without being conscious of death, you can't fully be aware of the gift of life. And many of us, including myself, can often live our life as if we think we have no end. And we can continue putting off the things we want to do to someday. to someday. Someday I'll do this. Someday I'll do that. I can say someday I want to go to Costa Rica, or someday I want to go to Ireland. Someday I want to be a great salsa dancer. Someday, all of these things. But I say that because I'm not taking the fully conscious that why not choose to live this now instead of someday. And so that is the invite for any of you who are going to watch this video, is recognize in motivating yourself, knowing that this right now may be the only moment you have. So say what you need to say, experience what you want to experience. And the gift of tomorrow really is that, a gift to do it all over again, to say what you want to say, to experience fully what you want to experience. And imagine if you lived your life like that over and over and over again, the relationships you would build, the experiences you would have. Thanks for watching, everybody. And let me just say this. I love you. Thanks for showing up. Bye, everybody.